Hello and welcome to another one of my videos in which I'm taking us through the whole spectrum of psychological well-being, from mental distress all the way through to positive psychological flourishing. In this video today, I'm going to take you through one of the kind of most evidenced and researched interventions in positive psychology. It's an intervention which has been shown to boost hope, optimism, goal discrimination, motivation, and yeah, it's routinely used throughout the positive psychology, the applied positive psychology literature. So if you were interested in finding out a little bit more about this is what we call the best possible self intervention. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of the development of the best possible self intervention, and then I'm going to take you through a little bit about how I apply it with my positive psychology coaching clients. I'm going to actually read through the version that I use, and that'll be towards the end of the video, so you can kind of get a taste, a little bit of how it is delivered in practice. And I've also included a link to an audio file of my version of the best possible self, which is more of a best possible self meditation that you can listen back to when you choose to. And also I've included a copy of my script, just following the links below. So again, you can refer back to this when you want to, just so you can start to adapt it and use it yourself. Or you can just get in touch with me if you want to kind of find out a little bit more about it. So the best possible self exercise essentially invites you to start to reflect and think about what that best possible self looks like for you when at some point in the future where you have accomplished all your goals, things have gone right for you, you've achieved what it is that you want to achieve in your life. It was first developed and trialed by psychologist Laura King in 2001. And King was inspired by the work of James W. Pennebaker, who developed a form of writing therapy, basically. And Pennebaker's work was all about using writing as a form of emotional regulation. Pennebaker proposed that when we have experienced difficult traumatic events in our lives, we often kind of put a lot of effort into inhibiting processing of those emotional events, the emotional events tied up in the trauma. And because we are kind of suppressing a lot of this stuff, it often leads to a prolonged stress response, worry, rumination, etc. All of these things, an effort to kind of suppress how we feel about traumatic life events, contributes then to adverse mental health outcomes and reduced mental well-being over the longer term. So Pennebaker basically developed this form of writing therapy in which basically people were invited just to write out in great detail the traumatic event or events that were the source of a lot of this kind of suppression and the source of the symptoms which contribute to the mental distress. So based on these ideas, King decided to test out what would happen when people didn't just write about traumatic events, but they also wrote about a possible positive future self. And this is the text on screen that was used in the initial study. Think about your life in the future. Imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly could. You've worked hard and succeeded at accomplishing all of your life goals. Think of this as the realization of all of your life dreams. Findings from the study showed that the best possible self intervention boosted positive emotion, optimism, and insight variables as measured by the subjective well-being scale and the life orientation test. The effect of the best possible self exercise has now been replicated in many positive psychological research studies, making it probably one of the most researched and reliable forms of positive psychological intervention. In terms of why it works, there's been lots of suggestions as to the main mechanisms which underlie it, again, all relating to different theories in the positive psychology literature. So in terms of self-determination theory, it's suggested that when we start to kind of focus on the best possible self for the future, we are actually thinking about those basic psychological needs of autonomy. We're thinking there about competence. We're often thinking there about relatedness as well. Okay? So when we engage in that best possible self, we are tying into the basic psychological needs that are part of SDT. Other researchers suggest that one of the positive effects from the best possible self exercise emerges from the fact that it reduces goal ambivalence. This is really important in a coaching perspective because, often we do have lots of kind of conflicting goals. We might believe that this is what we want from our lives. We might believe that this is the thing that we are navigating ourselves towards. Some of these goals might be losing track of a longer term goal in favor of something that is quite short term. So what this does when we start to focus on the best possible self, it reduces some of that kind of ambivalence and it enhances self-regulation. Another explanation invokes the broaden and build theory of positive emotion, which basically says that positive emotional experience enables us to unhook from negative emotional states and then leads to more kind of increased awareness, more generative, broader ranges of thinking, which in turn increases adaptivity, increases our ability kind of to act upon our environment in new, novel ways. So the very act that of the best possible self exercise, kind of focusing on something that we want, provokes positive emotion, which in turn leads to this kind of, again, broaden and build. Since it was first developed by King in 2001 as a written intervention, the best possible self exercise has been modified, adapted, and utilized in lots of different formats and media. Been used as a guided imagery or a meditative intervention. It's been delivered online. It's been incorporated into vision boards and things like that. It's a really adaptable intervention there, which can really benefit people however they choose to incorporate it into their lives. And in some cases where an absolute best possible self might be something that just seems just a little bit too insurmountable, a little bit too further away into the distance, again, it can just be modified and scaled back a little bit just to a better possible self. So that could even be just be a better possible self for today, a better possible self for next week, rather than it being some kind of, absolute future self where absolutely everything has come to fruition. Sometimes it just might feel as though that could be a little bit overwhelming for people. It's okay. We can just scale it back and adapt it into a way that suits the individual, that suits you in terms of how you utilize this particular intervention. For me, as a practitioner, the kind of utilization of the best possible self and the better possible self, I find really interesting because we can relate that best possible self idea just into discrete, better possible self exercises on a daily basis. So we can start to really invoke what that best possible self looks like. And then just through, coaching questions or just through, Socratic inquiry and stuff like that, we can scale it back to say, okay, so what does the better possible self do today? What does the better possible self do in the service of that kind of, the ideal there that we are moving towards? So we can kind of utilize that as a way of just kind of enhancing, very kind of discrete, time limited goals that are just a little bit more, in the moment for us, literally things that we can start doing today in the service of what we truly want. So, if you're interested in the best possible self intervention, I'm going to now take you through my version of it. The version of it that I typically deliver with my clients, I tend to do in session. We'll follow it up with a written exercise, but we will record it. We'll do it as more of a kind of a guided imagery type intervention. And it's in part based upon the mindfulness based strengths practice approach developed by Ryan Nemeth as part of the character strengths, the VIA character strengths work that has been done. But I also kind of embellish it a little bit with some of my kind of in the moment getting in touch with some of these positive emotions. So kind of complementing it with a little bit of kind of savoring, a little bit of noticing how the body reacts to notice when that best possible self is being visualized and feeling. So the rationale behind that there is so we can actually cognitively really start to visualize what it is that we want. Then we can also bring it back into the body. We can start to feel what it feels like when we really focus on those positive, that best possible self ideal, and just kind of savor that a little bit. So it just incorporates different aspects there of positive psychology fields and emotional process and body-based work as well. Okay? So if you're interested in trying this out, as I said, I'll put a link there to the recording, but I want to take you through this now as part of this video. The best possible self is an exercise that is useful for boosting well-being, the strength of hope, and for setting goals. You can do this exercise through discussion with others, through writing it out as a story, or as we are going to do today, through a guided meditation. We can begin by taking a moment to bring awareness to your breathing right now. Taking a moment to notice your in-breath and your out-breath. Just noticing and exploring, if it's possible, just to stay with the full cycle of the breath. Just wherever you feel it at its fullest. It will be at the nostrils, the belly, or the chest. And if you find yourself becoming distracted by any thoughts, feelings, sensations, just acknowledge whatever it is there that's creating that distraction. Totally normal. And then just guide your attention back to the. So if you notice yourself kind of getting caught up in any thoughts or difficult feelings as we do this, anything that takes you away from the exercise, that's okay. It's really normal, but just, you do find yourself kind of getting distracted, just bring your attention just back to the breath. And now we want to start to bring to mind some time in the future where you're expressing and you're living your best possible self. This could be at any time in the future. Be 6 months from now, 5 or 10 years, or it could just be all the way into the future, 20, 30 years from now. Just explore what it's like to visualize this best possible self in such a detailed way, where you've accomplished everything that you have wanted to accomplish. You're living your life based upon your values. You're achieving and living a life based upon your goals. This best possible self is something that is intrinsically motivating, desirable, contains aspects which are realistic. There's a possibility that you can get there. Just really focus on this best possible self right now. You can think about the relationships that you'll be enjoying in terms of friends, family, colleagues, romantic relationships. You're accomplishing your life goals in terms of career, fitness, financial aspirations, your artistic pursuits. You could be just flourishing in these areas, just living that life. You could be living somewhere where you've always wanted to live, or you could just be dedicating your time to a cause that just really resonates deeply with you. Really tune into this best possible self as it is right now. I'm really close to it, visualizing it in great detail. Notice the details. Notice your role in what you're doing. Notice the people that are around you. Notice the sights, the sounds, even the tastes, the smells. Notice how your body reacts to this. Notice where you feel that in your body. Notice how you feel right now as you explore this best possible self. Take a moment just to savor it right now. Just get close to those feelings just as they are. And just breathe with this imagery of that best possible self. As you continue to breathe with it, start to notice it just play out, almost as though we're just on today starting to play this out forward as a story. Just noticing those actions that you might be taking today, tomorrow, next week, next year, as you move in a direction, as you feel the pull, this best possible self. And just as we bring ourselves back into this present moment, staying with the breath as an anchor right now, start to consider what steps you can take today as you move towards this best possible self. So that's the best possible self intervention as I use it in my positive psychology coaching. Gives you a little overview there of what it is, why it works, and how we can adapt it for the individual. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about how we can utilize these as part of coaching, if you want to experience some coaching with me, then you can contact me directly at www.yourpositivepsychologycoaching.com. If you're more interested in looking at, again, more of the kind of mental distress, more kind of psychological problems aspects, you can always get in touch with me at my other website, which is www.accesscbt.co.uk. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to subscribe and look out for more of this content that I'm going to be developing moving forward. As for now, thank you very much for watching and look out for more stuff moving forward. Have a great day.